it's Michelle from Scrap Secrets, and I'm honored to be a guest on Create and Inkspire's August edition. Today we're going to be making a fun fold card. All of the information will be in the description box, so be sure to check it out. And here's just a quick sneak peek of the card when it's closed. So you're going to start off by taking a piece of 8.5 by 11 cardstock, scoring it at 5.5 on the 11-inch side, and then turning it to the 8.5-inch side and scoring again at 2 1/8 and 6 3/8. Now, if you're terrible at math like me, you can actually turn the paper around and score at both ends on 2 1/8. Just a simple trick. Then the parts where there were the lines through it, you're going to either take your paper trimmer or scissors and cut those out. Next, I took the Hello Summer stamp set from Honeybee Stamps and I inked up the 2 chairs with Catherine Pooler Midnight ink. This ink is new to me and it stamps beautifully. You just have to be really careful. The ink pad is very juicy and you just want to tap it on there if you're using Catherine Pooler's inks. And I'm sorry about the little bit of shaking. I use a gooseneck mount to do all my videos, and anytime I kind of move stuff around on my desk, it shakes a little bit. But now we're going to be doing the background. I cut down a piece of just kraft cardstock, cut it in half so it's 5.5 by 8.5, and then I used the Sandy Shores background stamp from Honeybee Stamps and inked it up in My Favorite Things Latte ink. And then in a minute, you will also see me use My Favorite Things Chocolate Brown ink. These are both hybrid inks from My Favorite Things. And since the stamp is smaller than the background, you'll see me ink it up a couple times on the one side, and then I will turn the paper around and ink it up on the other side. We're going to use this for the background for the interior piece of the card, as well as the sandcastle pieces. So this is going to be pretty involved. It did take me a long time to do this, but there are lots of steps to this because there's lots of parts to decorate. So fun fold cards are one of my very favorite things to do because you have a lot of real estate. It's almost like the slimline cards where there's a lot of real estate to do, but this one is, again, like its name, fun, because you can open it up in multiple ways. There's all different kinds of fun fold cards. It's probably, I'm thinking it's my favorite card to make. So this is the first time I'm using most of these Honeybee stamps. Actually, the girls have used a couple of them to make cards, but it's the first time that I'm using anything from this new Honeybee release, their Hello Summer release. So I inked it up, and it doesn't matter if you don't get all of the dots in here. It actually makes it look a little bit more realistic if you don't get them all inked up. So I'm going to leave that stamp in my Misty because we're going to use it again a little later on for something else. So once I have the background done, then I'm going to do the interior piece. So we're going to be doing water. So I took 3 different colors of Distress Oxide, Broken China, Salty Ocean, and Mermaid Lagoon, and just inked up a piece of white cardstock. We're going to be using some dies from Honeybee Stamps and cutting out the water for like waves of this to make it look like water for the interior of the card. So I'm just using a makeup blending brush to go back and forth. It's not really, it's kind of splotchy, but it doesn't really matter because this background is just water. So I'll go over it again a second time. So I did lightest to darkest, and then I went back and did darkest to lightest, and I just kind of made the colors blend. When you have a large piece of cardstock, you'll see my cardstock keeps actually pulling up. I do think I want to get one of those waffle flower media mats so that the cardstock sticks a little bit better, because with this non-stick craft mat that I have underneath here, the cardstock tends to slide, and when it does that, I feel like it buckles. So the next thing I'm going to do is get some water. Now, normally I have a spray bottle down here, but I took it to the beach last weekend and I don't remember if I left it there or not. So I just took a water bottle that I had sitting on my desk. I poured a little bit of water into the cap, and then I just kept dipping my fingers in it and putting splashes all over there. And then you'll see me use the microfiber towel to pick it up. The oxides leave that really nice white ring on there, so it really does look like bubbles underwater. And then of course, I'm cleaning off the mat because I am a super messy crafter and I will contaminate any project. So The next thing that I'm doing is taking the Waves dies from Honeybee Stamps, and I apologize, I don't have the name of it right in front of me. Oh, maybe I do. It is the Makin Waves Honey Cuts. So these are perfect because these do slimline cards, A2, A7 size cards. You can use this on essentially anything. So I just picked 3 wave dies, and then we're also going to use, actually use 4, 3 for the ocean, and that 4th one down at the bottom is going to be for the sand, and then I use the rest of the piece to do the sand castle, and then I'm going to take it and run it through my Cuttlebug. Now this piece is a background die from Honeybee Stamps, which is called Beach Scene. I ran it through my Cuttlebug too with white cardstock, and then the interior pieces just fall out. There is a frame around it so you can pop it back in if you wanted to put it on the front of an A7 card. It would fit nicely on that. But I didn't do that, so we're going to be using some tumbled glass to ink up the sky piece that's at the top, and we're going to piece this together like a puzzle on the front of the card to create a beach scene. So I used the tumbled glass to do the 2 sky pieces because I figured the clouds were in the middle and then the sky was underneath. You can kind of make it whatever you want it to be, but I decided to do the sky at the top, then the clouds, and then 1 more piece of sky, and then it'll go into the water, and then it'll go into the beach. So just inking it up with more Distress Oxide using my makeup brushes. And now we're going to go onto the water, and we're going to go back to the same colors that we used for the inside. Actually, just 2 of them. So it was Mermaid Lagoon and Salty Ocean, the Distress Oxides that I used for this. I decided to only use 2 because these were smaller areas, and again, you'll see the paper was kind of crumpling up. So I just kind of stayed in one direction and just moved from the left to the right when I was inking these up because the paper was bunching up. I'm just putting a little bit of depth and dimension by adding that last color and that is not Mermaid Lagoon. I am sorry, that is Salty Ocean. So the other one would have been, sorry guys, just trying to find Broken China. That was the first one I used. So I used Broken China and Salty Ocean. I apologize for that. I thought I used the Mermaid Lagoon. Trying to go off memory here, and it was a while ago. So I'm using Distress Ink in tea dye, and you can see my pad is really, really dry. I'm going to need to get another one. So I actually pulled out the Distress Oxide Vintage Photo to add a little color, and then you'll see me in a minute pounce it on there because it's going to be like sand. So I didn't really want it to be all one color I wanted to give it a little bit more texture. And then in a minute when I'm done this, we are going to put it in the Misty and use those same 2 colors of ink from My Favorite Things and use that Sandy Shores stamp to do sand on the front of the card. This is great I love building scenes with these dies. Honeybee has a lot of great stamps and dies to build sets together. So this was definitely, I wanted to use as many of these dies as I could in the project. So there you go, I'm inking up the Sandy Shores, and again, these pieces are longer than the stamp set, so I'm going to do the same thing, ink up one side, turn it around, and then ink up the bottom of that. And that will finish the pieces for the front, for the scene that we're going to glue to the front of the card. And the card base, I just used I think it's 65-pound Recollections cardstock in black. So now I am taking a C0, I think it was C0, just the C0 marker, I believe, to kind of go around the clouds, the edges, to just give it a little bit of depth and dimension to make it stand out a little bit. Now I'm going to take that die, the background die, and just place it over just so I can see where I need to start the scene because I want all the pieces to fit together and have pretty much an even border of black on the top and the bottom. And that die, again, is called Beach Scene A7 from Honeybee Stamps. Now I'm using My Favorite Things, They're on point precision glue to put glue on the back of all of the pieces. And again, it fits together like a puzzle very nicely. The good part about this is if you don't know where something goes, you can just pop it back into the die, but it's very easy to see how these pieces go together. But if you haven't colored them in, you might get the waves and the sand a little bit mixed up, but it's pretty easy to put back together. Again, just like a very simple puzzle. So here I realize I think I have this one on backwards. I have it upside down, so I will fix it in a second. But there's that other piece of sky. See, the clouds kind of go in between the sky. And again, using that precision glue to put glue over the back of it. And I realized I shouldn't have gone all the way down to the bottom, but it's really not that bad in the end. That glue pretty much dries matte. So I'm just going to put these pieces on, and what's nice about this is you can just snip off the remaining pieces after everything is together. And I colored the chairs off camera because I didn't want you to sit there and watch this. This video was very long as it was. I just did very, very simple Copic marker coloring. I used B12, B02, and B00, I believe. I'll have all the Copic markers linked below in the more information section. And then for the other chair, I used BV01, 02, and 00, I believe. But again, I'll have all that information linked in below. It's not really important, the colors. You can do the chairs any color, but I just thought that it kind of went with the theme, like I wanted to keep it in blues and real light purples. So again, I'm just gluing those chairs down. I think they fit perfectly into that scene. I love that Honeybee has so many stamps that work together. So then we are going to I believe next we are going to stamp the sentiment on the front of it. Sorry, just opening up the card just to show you guys how it opens up. Yep, there you go. Now we are going to be using the Wish You Were Here sentiment from the stamp set called Wish You Were Here. And we also used My Favorite Things Sweet Tooth pigment ink. So pigment ink takes a little bit longer to dry, so I wanted to stamp this and then get other pieces ready. We're going to use this to stamp both of the sentiments, the one on the outside and the one on the inside. So I wanted to give it some time to dry before I had to open it and do the inside. So I'm using the back because obviously it's the same dimensions as the inside to just figure out my layouts for this. So as you can see, this was the cutout of the sand and the sandcastle. One of the things, if I would have done this again, was I probably would have run some distress ink or distress oxide along the outside edges of or a Copic marker along the outside of the castle edges, the sandcastle, because it kind of blended into the sand a little bit too much in the end. I mean, I still can go back in and do that, and I may, but I just think that was one of the things, if I had to do this card over again, I would do. So I'm just taking measurements and just kind of laying out everything to see how many of those ocean background pieces that I need, and I end up only using 3 out of the 4 because with the 3 wave dies, you get 4 pieces to it. And I apologize, that's my cat that is not a baby crying. She tends to look for me when I'm downstairs, and she can hear me and she thinks that I'm talking to her. So I'm going to put all the pieces in place, and then I am going to cut them, and I'm going to cut them at 2 1/8 from both edges because that way it'll fit on the card, but I'm actually going to move it off the sides just a little bit. It's going to hang off the sides a little bit because you want to be able to still fold the card. Otherwise, I would just put tape across all of it and then just scored it. So you can do either one of those things. You can score the pieces at 2 1/8 on each side, and that way you'll have them, you can keep it as one piece, or you can cut them, and this is just what worked for me. So I did 2 1/8. I'm just going to show you the cutting of the sand, and then I will do the rest of those off camera because you don't need to see me cut. I mean, it's fairly simple. You don't need to see that cut several different times. So I'm just laying the pieces out again. Now I'm taking my ATG gun and running tape over all of it, just so, and this is where I realized I was lining it up with the left side when I shouldn't have been doing that, because the piece actually went over where you have to fold. So now I'm lining it up with the interior fold, and then there's going to be a little bit of overhang on the left side of the card and as well as the right side of the card, and I'll be able to trim that off afterwards. So just laying out the pieces to make sure that it goes all the way down to the bottom. And I'm going to match all the pieces up, do the same exact thing, put ATG down on all 3 of the sides, and then lay the pieces in place. So I love doing these kinds of cards. I love doing scene cards because I think it is so much fun to create something, and it's, it does take a while to do these, but I love the way that they turn out when you do scene cards. And I especially love scene cards with fun folds. I hope that you guys are enjoying this and that you will try this, because like I said, it is so much fun to, use, and you use up a lot of your supplies because you need a lot of, you don't need a lot of supplies, but you can use a lot of your supplies in this because it is you can make it a very involved design. So again, this kind of goes together like a puzzle, and you just put everything back together. And then I'm going to take my Tim Holtz tonic scissors. They are the very long snips, and snip off the excess pieces on the side. Oh, sorry about the trash on the on camera. I try to keep my desk, at least my filming area, a little bit clean, but I'm still learning with this new camera setup though. I didn't realize that much trash was in there, or that excess pieces was in there, until I watched this video back. So the next thing we're going to do is take the pieces of the sandcastle and just lay them out in the design. Now, other people have popped them up, and I think that's, again, another good idea, so it doesn't just blend into the sand. But I just didn't have the energy tonight to cut my foam up into teeny tiny pieces that would be required to go behind it. And also, because it's the interior of the card, I didn't want the interior to be too bulky, because then it would have a hard time closing, because you're going to have the flaps on the side and then the front piece that also has to close on top of it. However, like I said before, I would probably go around the edges with either some distress ink, distress oxide, or kind of go back in with some Copic markers and do a little bit of shading on that. And again, you can still do that after you put it together, so that, it doesn't all run into each other. So that's what I may do after this video. But, just putting the MFT On Point Precision Glue behind all of the pieces and gluing them down here. And you can glue them in a variety of different ways. There's also a flag and then an interior flag piece that comes with it, so you can make flags on the top of your castle. You can do a bunch of different things. But yeah, now as I'm looking at it, I realize, yeah, I probably do need to go with a Copic marker just to make it stand out a little bit. I also stamped out 2 flip-flops from the stamp set Flippin Fabulous, and we're going to color those in with Copic markers. I did that off camera, and those were cut out on, or stamped on, Bristol cardstock. I don't like to use Bristol with Copic markers, but that's what I had on my table, so on my scraps. So we are now using Life is Better at the Beach from the stamp set, again, Hello Summer. We're using that same MFT Sweet Tooth pigment ink to ink it up on the top of the card. And that is going to take a little while to dry. And now you see that I've already cut my flip-flops out. I fussy cut them, I colored them, and now I'm just going to take some ATG and glue them down to the flaps. And that's the entire card. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it. I hope that you guys are enjoying everything that Create and Inspire has to offer. My information will be linked below. Please check out my account and have a great day. Bye guys.